Remember when black folks were afraid to go vote right before Biden?
Yeah. I remember that.
So just to set precedents and just to make it known, we escorted the early voters to the polls with guns and bulletproof vests. So it's very different. And I like it. I'm not going to lie. Now, I don't really like to protest, like, unless I am heavily
ready.
I'm ready.
Right, TTG. That's a throwback.
This is an old ass man versus a young ass man podcast.
Welcome back to the Road to Legacy podcast. Today we are blessed to be here with Chivona Newsome. Chivona Newsome is co-founder of BLM New York and also co-founder of Black Opportunities. And so we're gonna get into this interview, and I'm excited to have her because she's a Bronx native, and I don't know if y'all know, I'm from the Bronx. This guy over here,
I'm from Harlem, 149th.
He's from Harlem. That's a whole nother side of the earth. But
right.
So we're here with Chivona, and let's get into this interview.
Let's go for it. I'm
Well,
excited.
thank you for being here with us.
First of all, we really appreciate you coming through.
I'm happy to be
And
here.
you came through on the drop of the dime.
I know.
You called,
I know.
You know.
I was like,
come
who's
on.
this man calling me? I had to call Hawk and confirm.
Well, it's your brother.
I had to verify. I'm like, some
yo,
strange
who's
man
this?
said, come to my podcast.
It was your
But I'm
brother.
here.
Your brother
I'm
was like,
here.
come on, she's
I'm
fire, just like I told you. And she went, and you said right away, I'll be there right away.
I was like, I'll
so
be
we
there.
appreciate it because we need, this type of talk.
We absolutely need this kind of talk. And so first thing, you're from the Bronx. I'm from the Bronx. I grew up
Absolutely. You gotta throw up the
all
X.
day.
You gotta throw it
all
up.
day. Y'all see that? That means BX is in the house.
Harlem doesn't have a thing. I
No,
feel a
They
little
don't
bit-
have a thing.
Yeah.
H?
Maybe
I
they
don't
can put
know.
up some shoes or something that look nice, or
All
a
right,
fur
all right,
coat or
A
something.
Gucci jacket.
Some Louis Vuitton shoes.
All
or
right,
something.
okay. Harlem. What did it say?
Martin has none
Harlem
of those.
keeps on making, no.
So,
right, anyway.
yeah, I know you was trying to bring back the old school lyrics.
Yeah, because
but
I'm old. Well, go ahead.
anyway, Chivona, as a Bronx native, what was it like for you growing up in the Bronx?
Now, you gotta realize, like, I'm an 80s baby, because, like, I have to give the age away because you could Google it. Like, I'm Googleable. So you can see how actually, I can't even lie about my age anymore. I was born in the middle of when America tried to destroy Black people again.
Drugs are menacing our society. They're threatening our values and undercutting our institutions. They're killing our children.
You're talking about crack epidemic. You're talking about when the Bronx, how no matter how bad they're showing on the news, when I was born, it was stray dogs. Like, there were burnt out buildings. Like, you walk to school and the playground would have crack vials in it. Like, a respectful family would be torn apart and people selling like baby cribs and things out of their home. Yeah. But the thing is, like, I don't like that struggle part of the Bronx, because what the Bronx did give me is that tenacity, that against all odds, that toughness that you need when you're fighting governments, when you're fighting bureaucrats, when you're going against, I don't know, I was just in a battle with Ethiopia. Like, a whole nation is like attacking you. So I think that Bronx tough, that sense of community, it's a part of what made me. It's absolutely what made me.
Yeah, and you talked about growing up in the Bronx and seeing during the crack epidemic. I grew up in the 80s too, and I remember going to the basketball court, seeing crack vials all
everywhere.
over the court.
I just can't get out of my mind. You remember the little hopscotch thing in the playground?
Yeah, I remember
there would
that.
be crack vials on it when you went to school in the morning.
What street were you from? Where?
Shiesty Sheridan, Shiesty Ave.
Yeah, we were right around. I grew up in Castle Hill Projects.
What high school you went to?
I went to Stevenson High School.
I went to Clinton. Super Bronx girl.
I'm super Bronx boy.
They're talking the Bronx.
It's a whole Bronx lingo.
I ISO Martin for this conversation.
Well, I know a little bit. My
Bronx thing.
father lived in the Bronx.
Okay, where'd your dad grow up in the Bronx?
I'm sorry. He grew up in Queens.
Okay,
but
thank you for the correction.
He moved
That's
to the
different.
Bronx and he lived in right there on 165th Street, Grand Concourse.
You was fancy.
See,
that was
that's why I didn't bring
high
that
in the
up.
hall.
That's why I
Like,
didn't
this
wanna
building
bring it
is
up.
what you
That is why I
aspire
know.
to.
That's why I didn't want to bring
It's
that
like,
up.
no, it's gorgeous, right? It's still
It's
gorgeous.
nice.
It's like, it has a driveway,
Oh, there we go.
and it's like in marble, and it's the view.
Yo.
Like, I did have some cool friends who lived there, and the views were
That's why I didn't
spectacular.
want to bring it up.
Like,
But right, we
Jerome
Jerome
Avenue.
Avenue.
you
Jerome
need a
Avenue.
building like that.
Jerome Avenue was right there.
But you
though.
needed a building like that, like the whole concourse for people to know. Those was like fancy Black black folks, where our politicians was, like all these things. So
GQ
you actually,
used to live
you
there.
needed
GQ.
Flavor Flav, like
Yeah,
he'd
the
ride
Flavor
around on a
Flav. He
scooter
was just hanging out
on the
with us.
block.
Right.
But you needed buildings like that, so because it gives you something that, like, those are good, hardworking black folk, and we needed to see that in the community.
Amen.
So I'm gonna throw shade at it, of course, but you needed to see it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, because
Go
the
ahead.
Bronx was a very different place. Like
Absolutely.
growing up in the '80s with Reaganomics, you know, it was crack, it was drugs, and your parents were activists. So
Yes.
can you please tell us a little bit about that and growing up with activist
How'd
parents?
they meet? I heard they met.
They met at a
Y'all-
rally.
you and Hawk
So
came about.
going back to the Bronx, because it always goes back to the Bronx. Roosevelt High School is right in front of Fordham University, where I graduated from. It was a protest, and my mom's still in the window. Right, they were protesting for Black history to be taught by a Black professor. Ironic that we talk about critical race theory right now,
Yes,
right?
right.
How far
Still dealing with
away
that.
are we actually away from it? So he sees her in the window, and he like calls her down, like, "Hey, girl, join the protest. Come on down." And that's how they met. But it's weird because they didn't really highlight all of the stuff they do. Like, my mom's still reluctant to say, like, it went from, oh, my sister was hanging out with the Black Panther Party, to now you were going to meetings, Mom, now you were organizing, now Daddy was having like secret meetings in his bedroom. And they didn't know, well, my dad's been gone about 9 years, right? But she didn't even disclose everything about that until we were older. Now, what it was in my house is ironic that we're sitting at a table. It was our kitchen table discussions that budded the activism, because we're news junkies. Like, my family, like, you wake up watching the 5 o'clock news, you go to sleep watching the news. In the middle of the day, you would debate those points. It was important, even with my parents' work schedule, that we had dinner when we could as a family. So that's where the service came into it. And my parents were selfless, like, even to a detriment. Like, any relative, any person who and we didn't have much. I told you where we live in, right? So they came to our house, right? They were taking in relatives. They were giving all they could.
Wow.
They were giving back at church, because to be a good Christian is to be a servant. So that's where that stemmed from my parents. And just knowing your place as a Black person in America. And what I mean by knowing your place, that does not mean, oh, walk 3 steps behind a white man and cross the street. That means that this country hates you. It was designed to harm you and get rid of you. And you have to be like 3, especially for a Black woman, you gotta be like 5 times better than everybody else just to get an ounce of what they got. I remember my parents, this book, one of the books they gave me was really important, was Before the Mayflower. And I feel like a lot of people because all we talk about is slavery, and I want our reparations, let's be clear. So we're
100%.
gonna keep that on the table.
Right.
But,
We want our reparations.
we want our reparations. Cut the check.
Cut the check.
Cut the check.
Right away.
100%.
Absolutely. But to know that you come from kings and queens, to know that you come from architects and mathematicians, and to know the beauty of your people before it was raped, rummaged, pillaged, and we were turned into a commodity in this country, it's important to know your roots. Like, I love cliches. You might hear me drop some of them, because like, you have to know who you are to get to like where you're going. So knowing that strong foundation, knowing what we were as a people and what we are as a people, my parents gave us the truth. They didn't really sugarcoat it. I don't know how they found a way to explain to children, but it's like, this is what it is outside the door. And I say outside the door because oppression was always ever present. We talked about the crack epidemic. We talk about poverty. You talk about your neighbors working 2 and 3 jobs and still ending up in housing court.
Before that, it was a heroin epidemic. That's when I was a kid.
That's when my parents too. My mom, when she first migrated from the
heroin
South,
was
she
ridiculous.
talks about Harlem, because that was the first place she went.
That's where it was.
And it was just straight heroin. My
The
mom
police
talked about
used
that.
to line up Black people so they can go get their drugs neatly.
Wait,
In a
Orderly.
wait, say that again. People,
Orderly.
police used to
The
line
police
the
used to
people
come to
up
the
from
community and line them up so they can go
To get drugs.
to get into the abandoned buildings. Because remember, back in the days, even in the 80s, everything was abandoned. Everything was burned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Everything. I mean, you could walk from 165th Street all the way down all the way down
110th?
Even Girard was gone. Everything
Yeah,
was
Gerard
gone.
was terrible. It was, yeah.
Everything was gone. So yeah, to your point, it happened before.
Yeah, and if you think about it, it just keeps happening. When we hear things like Law and Order, when we hear, like, that's a dog whistle term for your viewers. That's pretty much just me, keep Black people in line, make them shut up, make sure the police keep their foot on their neck. I do believe that the police department are the enforcers of white supremacy. They do the work of the government. Their work is sanctioned and praised. But nothing's changed. And sometimes I watch these documentaries. I want to be a student of history. I want to learn from where the other civil rights leaders, where they make their mistakes. But I won't lie, it makes me a little sad. It makes me a little pessimistic that like 60 years, we're still fighting for housing. We're still fighting for education. We're still fighting for a quality of life. Because civil rights, it sounds good, right? I like to say I'm a civil rights leader, but that's like the bare minimum civil rights. That's like your human given rights. And we don't want a handout, our organization. What we want is equity. So you can keep your equality, like it's a myth, like equality isn't real. Equity is not hindering our access, not redlining, not funding our schools. Like that's why it's so important that we founded our own school. Like we have our own Montessori school. It's the only Montessori school that's in the Bronx that's free of charge. So our kids are getting a $40,000 to $50,000 education for free. These kids are brilliant, though. I think they're like little aliens. They're like 5 doing division, and it's like, and they're learning the code and stuff with wooden blocks, and they're using ancient math techniques. Like I invite anyone up to our school. It's crazy.
That's super incredible. Wow. Where did that leadership skill come from? Because you and your brother are leaders, and just being able to sit down and talk to you and looking at your brother, for me, it feels like I'm having a conversation with someone from the past. From like if we were interviewing Angela Davis right now, or
she's like my favorite.
Oh,
right?
like so you and your brother to me remind me heavily of the Black Panther movement, and so in saying that, how much of that influences what it is that you do?
Well, if you look at our mission statement, you go to the website, BLM, Creator New York, our 10-point plan is almost identical to that of the Black Panther Party. And of course, why wouldn't we want to be? We think about WIC, right? I know it has a negative connotation, but that was to feed people. That was a really good program to help our community. When you talk about free breakfast in school and a lot of things that our government picked up and is doing now, why wouldn't we want to pick up the torch and model ourselves after them? And I think that they knew, when you see Angela Davis and you've seen others from the Black Panther Party go on to run for office, that's the next logical step. Because just to break it down for people, right, to know what we actually do. Because people think we're just screaming in the streets all day, right? Who don't know. That's what the media is going to show. They're not going to show the school. They're not going to show us cleaning up NYCHA. They're not going to show our back-to-school drives, our Juneteenth. They focus on cryptocurrency and financial literacy. But 5% of what we do is actually protesting. The real work is in the community, spreading the word, it's uplifting and creating, we're gonna talk about Black opportunities at some point, but creating an empowerment for our community, and it's just what's needed. I think that when you say we remind you of them, it's an honor. It's an absolute honor, but studying and just research, I just wanna see where they went wrong, because I see all the same things happening, from internal divisiveness in Black organizations. When you think about COINTELPRO, when you think about infiltration, these are real things that I've experienced. Like you have, I have experienced just being infiltrated. Like it's weird, and you watch how the Black Panther Party became paranoid. They became afraid. Like how we talk about tactical training, and I have to wear 40 pounds of armor to be safe. And it's hard, but you still have to keep your mind open. You still have to build a collective. You still have to be a good leader. I just hope I could do more than they could. And that's not in a shady way.
No,
that's
it's not.
I hope I learned from them and can do better.
And you do better.
And the crazy thing about it is what not you, but what we're fighting for is the basic needs to live. But and the craziest thing about it is, why is it that we have to be on guard when we're asking for the same thing that everybody else gets?
Human rights.
The basic human rights. And I hate to have to always compare things to a black and white, but in America, it's always this conversation about race or conflict between black and white. You know what I mean? And so in saying that, you said something that I want to ask about. Black Lives Matter New York and Black Lives Matter International are two different entities. We know that recently the Black Lives Matter International, they they found out that they was buying
Something happened with some
mansions
money.
and-
Global
we don't
network.
really
Global
know.
network.
Okay.
Right. We don't really know exactly.
We
what
don't
went down
know.
yet.
And I'm
Because we were talking about
and
infiltration.
We've had beef.
We were talking about
Let's
infiltration.
be real, because you want the story of why we created. Let's get some tea in it, right?
Yes, let's get some tea. Yes.
Because they were always at their inception. They were more, and we have degrees over here. Like my brother's a lawyer. I'm a former financial advisor. We got the whole gambit, accountants, you name it. We have a school, so yeah, some smart folks. But their methods when they came out was more so to attack it via the arts and plays and books and a very intellectual approach. And our people were dying and endangered. So we knew that, no, we needed a direct response. We knew that when the NYPD or the government came at our people, that we'd be at their front door. As you've seen with our fights with Eric Adams, as you've seen with our fight with Donald Trump. And that's why we were created. So we were always an independent organization. And it's the people's money, right? They received a lot of stuff, and it should be audited. But my issue is if you audit them, right? Because it sounds real salacious, it sounds juicy. Like, we have a $6 million mansion, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what their exact job titles were and their nonprofit status, but why is it such close scrutiny when you think about Rainbow Push Coalition? Remember, they was on Jesse, right?
Yes.
Why is it such close scrutiny when black people have an organization?
You took the words right out of my
what's
mouth.
going on with Susan G. Coleman right now? What's happening with the Red Cross? What did the Clintons? Oh God, I hope I live through this because you know when you come after them. What happened out there in Haiti? Right?
Yes.
So I just say even with Obama, right? And I was on his presidential inaugural committee. It's just I feel a certain way about black people being smeared in the media. I feel like